This isn't it. From memory, that's not at the end of their street, because that's the golf course.
I vaguely remembered the show. I never watched it when it was on TV, but I do remember the hype surrounding it.
Yes, we're trying to find the house. We're a little lost.
I grew up in the Shire, and I remember going to Sylvania Waters as a kid in the 60s, so it has a special significance for me.
Just like craving a street number. The curator is adventurer.
It's our domestic science fiction meets Sylvania Waters, so it's going to be intriguing.
I think that's it.
We were watching 7 hours of Sylvania Waters. That's when I realised it was like an actual show that we were all going to make art about.
Yeah, because that's the end of the street, and then the house there is it. Yes, that's definitely the house. Gee, the trees have grown. Here we are, sunny Sylvania Waters, not far from Hazelhurst Regional Gallery, where I'm the curator. We're committed to telling local stories at the gallery, and we thought it was long overdue to explore this very, exciting and sensational moment that took place 17 years ago on television screens. And this is where it all happened, the house that you see right behind me.
Nolene and Laurie Donahers allowed British documentary maker Paul Watson and his cameras into their Sydney home for 6 months for a warts-and-all look at family life down under.
Of course we haven't got the room, he's not stupid!
Well, you heard what he just said, Nolene.
God, streets, Laurie, one of these days I'll pack me bloody bags and I'm going out of here. Truly, there's more drama living in this house than living out of it.
Yeah, look, I love that scene, and I think it says it all, and it reminds me of how much I loved the show and how, like most Australians, I was addicted from, the first episode.
They've provoked amazement, even horror. But after just one episode, the suburban stars of Sylvania Waters are a household hit.
Back when Sylvania Waters debuted on television, we didn't have millions of reality shows. So this was really the first time that Australians sat down and watched people like themselves, or like the horrible neighbours next door, going at each other, hammer and tongs, night after night, mum's in the kitchen with a fag and a glass of wine, and, and the kids are squabbling. And it was real life, and it was real people on television. So it was a watershed moment in Australian TV.
When thinking about creating an art exhibition about the TV show Sylvania Waters, I selected a group of contemporary Australian artists who work across a broad range of media and have a range of concerns that are relevant to their practice, but who also tap into various themes that are relevant to the show, such as suburbia, family, class, media histories, archives and so on.
The only editing was just going back and forth between the studio.
Well, the aims for today are really to bring all the artists together to continue the discussion about the exhibition, but also to watch all of the archive material that the ABC have that pertains to the television series.
Hi, darling, how's your day at work? I never do that.
Well, now that the artists have been briefed, they've watched the series, they've watched a lot of the media archive content, it's their turn to go off and respond in some way. So I'm really excited to see what they come back with.
So you can see my chefing action here. When I left school, I became a chef. I also worked as a muso and as a drummer in a band. Unfortunately, it damaged my ears. I kind of had a bit of a crisis, and I ended up basically going to art school. Yeah, well, like most people, when I first saw the series, I didn't like Nolene at all, and I probably, jumped on the bandwagon of condemning her, and, I thought she was really quite horrible. I mean, basically her life was ruined, and the more I read about it, the more I learnt more about the backstory and what actually happened, I thought of maybe, well, how can I go about presenting Nolene in a different light? So what I'm doing is I'm going into the entire series and I'm basically selecting little kind of sound bites, all the niceties.
Look what you've got. Look what you've got.
You know, the positive things. So to create this impression of Nolene that is, you know, very different to the one that audiences were left with.
You see, the worst of it is I'm becoming to be the ogre, and really I'm not the ogre at all.
I'm basically doing a similar thing to what was originally done, and so instead of looking for the nasty bits, I'm looking for the nice bits.
She's a top little girl. Top little girl.
The idea I have is to have Nolene's face projected onto the floor with the surface of the swimming pool, so her face appears and fades in and out. You know, it'll create this impression of this kind of wise oracle, you know, the suburban Aussie mum from Sylvania Waters as this giving us advice on all kinds of things. So I've created these images here, particularly because they really reflect the different moods, so smiling, questioning, looking serious. Sometimes Nolene gets into my head and I start talking like her. You know, like I'll just be in conversation and I'll go, oh yes, that's much, much nicer, much, much nicer.
Much, much nicer. Much, much nicer.
I actually like her more than I saw her in the series all those years ago.
We trusted, we were gullible, we were stupid. You can call us anything you like.
Well, what about naive?
Yeah, totally naive.
Sylvania Waters was very much made for entertainment value. I think the Donohoe family had no idea what was coming, and it's probably very cruel, you know, if you look at it from their point of view, the representation of that family. And I think, you know, you could say Sylvania Waters really stands at the beginning of the slide into reality television. You know, and you know, that's a kind of car crash now. I mean, you know, we realise that reality shows are made to highlight people's idiocies, vanities and foibles, and they're made, you know, explicitly to entertain us with those things.
But what is it about the activities of this family in Sylvania Waters that so upsets you, particularly?
Nothing upsets me about their activities, Quentin. They live their lives as they have the right to do so. The thing that upsets me is that the filmmaker has taken this family to be representative, not only of the Sutherland Shire, but of Australians generally. It's been made for a British audience. You know, you can imagine they're going to be looking at this and thinking we're a bunch of colonial hicks.
I grew up in a small, white Christian male sort of town. I didn't really fit in. My interest in art began as a need to express myself in regards to how I felt I was treated in the town. University has made me focus my attention in a different direction. Being able to say something, have some sort of message, or exposing something that people might not know about, and you can say it in different ways. You can be loud, or you can be quiet and subtle. I'm planning on making a paper sculpture out of a map of Sylvania Waters, which includes Nolene's house down there and James Cook Island. When I first saw it, I saw a Wandjina figure, which is an Aboriginal rain god from the Kimberleys. But I photoshopped it to resemble more of a face. One person suggested that it was bad luck to recreate them because the original ones are in the Kimberleys and they're meant to be the only ones because that's where the spirit appeared first. So I'm going to recreate Nolene's house out of paper nearby the Wandjina figure. Just thinking about Nolene's bad luck and maybe that had something to do with it. It's just to get an idea of the shape of the house, to draw the plan onto the graph paper to make a three-dimensional sculpture. Like the house. Yeah, I'm happy.
It's the first time for me as a curator that I've actually worked on a show that marries archival material with, contemporary art that responds to that archival material. So, and I think for a number of the artists in the show, it's certainly a very unique brief. There were a number of performance artists that I was very interested in working with. Ultimately, the Kingpins were really suitable. Their work is very much about, Australian attitudes towards masculinity and gender. It'll be interesting to see how they respond to a documentary series, Sylvania Waters, in relation to some of the conventions they've established for themselves as a, collaborative art group. At the moment, the Kingpins are in residence and they're trawling the Shire looking for inspiration.
We're off to Gummy and Ales to channel our inner Norleans.
For a Matty and a Patty. Yeah, we thought that might be appropriate considering the level of maintenance of which Norleen like to...
Practice.
Yes.
She was a true believer in external beauty as a way to...
transcend. Possibly cover up the incredibly masculine female that she truly was.
I'm looking for something with a water theme, something, something Noeline.
Daniel particularly engaged us because we're performance artists and we engage with costume and dress-ups and drag, women to men drag.
Looking at Sylvania Waters now, it's just such a time capsule and ripe for the picking. Apart from the drama, I'm sort of looking past the characters and then start looking into the interiors, start looking at what's hanging on the wall, signifiers of a time and place, which I find really interesting as far as these Kingpins mythologies of time and place.
I've never had so much attention. I'm converted. We're just working at finding our own entry point at this stage.
Yeah, I think Daniel's wet dream would be to have 4 Noleans running around Sylvania, but we'll see about that. Yeah, don't hold us to anything.
When you say that you're from Sylvania Waters, the first question you get is, do you know where Laurie and Noeline live? And I can say, yeah, they live across there, across the water, or they used to.
The way it was presented, I didn't think it was good for Sylvania Waters at the time. But I think we've got over that now. The properties are rising and...
Rant at each other, that sort of,
And it was pretty cringeworthy. I remember thinking it was pretty embarrassing.
No way in the world that I could do what they did. No, especially because there's always arguments in my place. Oh, she'll love me for that.
I won a drawing competition when I was in kindergarten and I won a free movie ticket. So I took my mum to see La Bamba. A lot of these works are about revisiting the past and retracing our steps as we migrated and just moved around Western Sydney. With these drawings, I like to sort of capture an aura of the places and portray them as they are today, but also reference the past, so I go for that old look. Straight away, when I was asked to be in the show, I thought about, where I was at the time when the show was screened the first time. I'm doing a pair of drawings. One is of the Sylvania Waters house, and the other is of the house I lived in during the time which the show was filmed, so the early 90s. The idea was to sort of show the contrast of where they lived to where I lived and where we were at that certain time. From watching the show, we were very different. They both have palm trees, so there is that sort of sense of paradise. And everyone has their own interpretation of their own paradise or what they aspire to achieve.
We
happened to have a camera the first day, like we had a Super 8 camera the first day that we met. And that was really sort of the beginning of, I guess, a formalisation of a sort of collaborative process. We got married in 1999. Our work naturally sort of became more and more entwined, and then we've shown together ever since as Ms and Mr.
Ms and Mr are a collaborative artist couple, Richard and Stephanie Nova-Milne, and their art practice is specifically based around their relationship as a source material, and they trawl through their archives and they remix them and they play around with parallel universes and alternate realities. For the exhibition, they've actually been put in contact with one of the families that were actually under consideration for what became Sylvania Waters. So they could have been, you know, another version of the Donahurst. So it'll be interesting to see, you know, how that, you know, relationship that they've formed with this family translates into an artwork.
When we heard that there were that we could possibly like meet a potential family that could have done the series, we instantly sort of thought about this idea of an alternate reality. Our own work is sort of, we view it as a kind of domestic science fiction. It kind of made sense to us that we could explore a different aspect of our practice through this family. Yeah, Richard's mum lived in Bathurst for a while. Today's a little research trip for us, that we just want to sort of go and meet them and see if there's something that we can do with our work.
How are you? I'm well, how are you?
Good. Nice day, isn't it? It's gorgeous.
Brilliant.
It's amazing.
All right, the halloumi's getting cold and rubbery.
You said at the time you're involved in, you had a few causes at the time, and you think that maybe that was one of the reasons why they kind of maybe backed out a bit, because it was going to be a bit too controversial, or?
I think at the end of that night, we came to a mutual understanding that despite our beauty and so forth, we weren't the product, you know, and we had no idea what the product was.
But there was nothing formal.
I know.
It just
It didn't bother us.
just trickled into the sand.
They're so great to listen to. They have a lot of perspectives on a lot of different things. And maybe we're correcting a sort of past in a way, giving them almost a soap opera.
It's becoming a much broader collaboration. I think with this project, we will certainly collaborate with them. I really want them to enjoy it. I want it to be fun for them.
Like, they're really expecting it could go anywhere, and that's a really nice thing to work with, because they're kind of quite open-minded as well. So I think we'll probably spend the next few days having to think about where we'll take it.
Paul and Dione Baker are an ordinary couple thrown into extraordinary circumstances.
Do you wish then that you didn't do it? If we could turn back time and I had been like a guardian angel sitting on Nolene's shoulder, I would have told her, no, don't do it.
I quite like the Donahurst family.
I mean, they were just a working family and they had the same problems that every other family has. Possibly I'm romanticising it a little bit in the hope that it will sort of generate work. Today's a studio day.
Everything sort of has to come out of the studio, I find. I've only been making work outside of art school for, 3 years.
Over the last year, I've been making lots more collages. And you make them really quickly and a lot of them don't work. And it's just, you know, an extension from drawing in your book or something. They're just sort of loose riffs, which I'll use to make a picture, and then that maybe just sort of like carry on. My painting practice over the last couple of years has come to sort of really take on an interest in typography and sort of graphic, sort of design-driven drawing practice. The hire a boat painting refers specifically to the relationship between Paul and Dione and the Donahursts. So the painting was almost just a gesture.
The fact that they were never invited to go aboard these kind of drunk cruises. If they're not inviting you, then just hire a boat and do it yourself, and thought, oh, you can't really do it because you've got no money. Well, the palette that I was using for this show has bled into the work that I would sort of make ordinarily outside of this particular project. You just sort of accept this kind of intolerable pink as the primary sort of, you know, base kind of tone for maybe the next year until I'm fed up with it, which we have Daniel and the Sylvania crew to thank for that, altering my aesthetic tastes.
Well, today we're just setting up John Douglas's work. We're just doing a pre-test and also setting up for the purposes of documenting the installation for the exhibition catalogue, which goes into production shortly.
This is how you make video art. This is kind of like the dress rehearsal. So today I'm more focused just trying to, figure out and see how it works. I still don't even know if it's actually going to work yet, so...
All the artists are varying degrees of progress with their work.
And it needs to be in focus a little bit more.
It's an exciting process, commissioning artists to make work for a show that has a curatorial brief, but it's also incredibly terrifying because you have an expectation about an artist's work based on the quality to date. For the most part, I think it really pays off, though. Your instincts always will... For me anyway, they always seem to kind of pay off.
I'm really pleased. I'm stoked. A little bit more work to be done, but very pleased.
You got the TV off for any reason, Yvette? Have you got the TV off for any reason?
Yes.
Like a Morgan, eh?
I knew I was going to paint stills from the show. This is actually the scene that stood out to me. Even the first time round, I thought, I think I'm going to paint that one. Not so much because it was visually striking, but just because of what he said in this scene. People just find comfort in having a TV on. It's almost like another member of the family or just another person in the room. It was just interesting for them to be filmed watching TV was almost like them trying to escape the cameras, so just have a bit of a moment to themselves. So it was probably some of the most sincere moments within the series.
When I've brought Michael up, then fine. But that wouldn't be the answer. That's not the answer either.
I think the body language in that painting says a lot. He's positioned himself facing away from Laurie and Nolene. It's almost like he just doesn't want to be there and just feels really uncomfortable with the whole thing. So yeah, I'm hoping that they'll see something new, or something new will be presented within these works.
Absolutely. Very tired. We're getting there.
You get to see her and then...
It is exhilarating. There is that adrenaline that you know that you've got to do a lot of troubleshooting and problem solving. Do the instructions. It's always a particular wrestling match with technology.
The paper sculpture you saw me working on earlier didn't happen. A bit frustrated with that. So I've got the original image I was making the sculpture from. So displayed that and made the installation. But I'm using a mirror effect on the camera just for the audience to interact with the piece. They'll be having fun pulling faces and making themselves look a bit strange. Around the corner's another screen. It'll be just them pulling the faces without any effect. The idea is for them to feel a bit exploited, like something similar that's happened to Nolene, I think, in the TV series.
We had an excellent meeting with the family that day when we went and had lunch with them. And then we wanted to really just simplify the work. And so the very idea itself really got reduced down to doing portraits of them and having them interact with the architecture of Sylvania Waters TV show, and they're sort of like camped out, I guess, in the space.
I think what was really important for us was to sort of control the camera, which is something that we often do in our own work.
I guess it's turned out to be kind of ambiguous dialogue with each other, where we're not quite sure if they're sort of sharing experiences, sort of mildly amused by each other, or sort of engaged in something deeper. We're not sure.
We've cut it really fine. We've been installing for 5 days. It's Friday afternoon. We are opening the show in less than an hour, and some of the artists are still tweaking, but we know that it's all going to come together in the end. So I'm ready to get changed and get to some clothes that don't smell.
I'd like to officially open Hazelhurst's latest exhibition, Reality Check, Watching Sylvania Waters. Thank you.
The exhibition is here. It's finally arrived after 2 years of, an extraordinary journey, working with fantastic artists.
You see, the worst of it is I'm becoming to be the ogre, and really I'm not the ogre at all.
This is the culmination of, I guess, our experience here with the residency, using Nolene as a kind of, as our muse, really. So, they're critical images, but they're also extremely celebratory because we love her.
Well, here we are, the show is finally here. The opening has happened, the speeches have happened, all the artwork's up, and it's time to celebrate. Oh, why am I drinking beer? I should be drinking bourbon and coke. It's what Nolene would have wanted. Sylvania Waters, thanks for the memories. Cheers.